The atmosphere inside Lunax Academy's training hall buzzed with the quiet hum of alien technology. Students from various corners of the galaxy were gathered, their eyes fixed on the instructor as she explained the day's task. The floor beneath their feet was made of polished chrome, gleaming under the artificial lighting. Around them, towering holographic screens displayed schematics of the trap-building exercise they were about to undertake. At the far end of the hall, Sergeant Liam Carter leaned against the wall, his arms crossed, eyes scanning the room. His posture was relaxed, but his mind was anything but. He had been through simulations before, but this one was different. Today's exercise was going to prove more than just his skill, it was going to prove humanity's worth. "We have a simple mission," Zaravor's voice cut through the chatter, calm and cold as always. The Andromedan officer stood at the center of the room, her sharp gaze sweeping over the cadets. "Build a trap capable of capturing a high-value target. Use your resources wisely. The exercise will test your ingenuity, strategy, and the effectiveness of your design. You have 1 hour." Liam pushed himself off the wall, stepping forward as Zaravor gestured to the piles of materials scattered across the floor. The other cadets immediately went to work, some with confidence, others with hesitance. Liam's gaze fell on the trash pile, scraps of metal, old wires, broken gadgets, and discarded parts. It wasn't much, but to him, it was a canvas. "Are you sure that's enough?" A voice cut into his thoughts. He turned to see Tira, a young Xerian from the Outer Rim, eyeing the pile curiously. "Enough for what?" Liam grinned, picking up a dented trash can and tilting it in his hands. "I think it's just right." Tira gave him a skeptical look but didn't press the issue. Instead, she turned to her own pile of materials, where advanced tech components lay waiting. Liam's trap was bound to be laughed at in comparison. Everyone here used high-tech gadgets, repurposed weaponry, and intricate designs. No one would ever think to use something as simple as a trash can for a tactical advantage. Zaravor was making her rounds, inspecting the other cadets' progress with an approving nod here and there. When she reached Liam, she paused. Her icy blue eyes narrowed as she took in his choice of materials. "A trash can? Is that your plan, human?" Her voice was laced with disdain. Liam didn't flinch. "It's just as good as anything you've got," he replied casually, not breaking eye contact. The Andromedan's lips curled into a thin, mocking smile. "If you say so. I'll be interested to see how this plan unfolds." Liam could hear the snickers of his classmates. They weren't mocking him to his face, they were too proud for that, but their subtle glances told him everything he needed to know. The humans were nothing more than a joke to them. He ignored it. Focused on the task. Focus on the trap. The minutes slipped by, and Liam worked with precision. He stripped the wires, repurposed the metal, and rigged the trash can with a series of pulleys and levers he'd designed on the fly. The other cadets were still busy, their creations towering over Liam's simple design, most of them bristling with blinking lights and energy fields. The Andromedans, a few Lysians, and even the Coria were all using the latest in quantum tech. But Liam wasn't worried. He had something they didn't, pure ingenuity. Around him, the cadets worked fast, their advanced tech quickly taking shape. Tira, for instance, had already assembled a glowing trap that looked like something straight out of a battle simulation. She shot Liam a glance, her eyes wide as she saw how far he'd come with a pile of discarded scrap. "You're really doing this, huh?" she asked, a mixture of disbelief and admiration in her voice. "Yeah," Liam replied, not looking up. "Something tells me simple beats fancy this time." Tira's mouth curved into a small smile, but she didn't press further. Zaravor had moved on to another station, inspecting the traps with a look of professional detachment. She wasn't interested in Liam's antics anymore. She was confident that no matter what the human built, it wouldn't matter in the end. With 30 minutes remaining, the room fell into a tense quiet as everyone's traps began to take shape. Liam's, however, looked like nothing more than a half-constructed pile of junk. He stood back, wiped his brow, and took a moment to look at his creation. The trash can sat in the center of a small pit he had dug into the ground. Several wires extended from it, leading to a makeshift pressure plate camouflaged under the dirt. The trigger would set off an alarm the moment anything heavy stepped on it. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't complex. But it was efficient. At the 30-minute mark, Zaravor turned to face the class again. "Time to test your traps," she declared, her voice echoing in the silence. "Step forward and activate your creations." The first cadet stepped up, an imposing Xerian whose trap was a massive cage, powered by complex magnetism. He activated it, and the trap hummed to life, the cage snapping shut with a deafening clang. The next cadet, a tall Lysian, had constructed a shock field that would incapacitate its target instantly. And then, it was Liam's turn. He stepped forward, and the room fell deathly silent. With a small flick of his wrist, Liam activated his trap. The trashcan lid popped open, and with a subtle whirring noise, a net shot out of the base, springing upward into a large mesh that encircled the Invader in the simulation. The pit had triggered a series of metal plates to spring into place, holding the target in place. A loud alarm blared, signaling the trap's success. Liam stood there, his hands in his pockets, trying to ignore the astonished silence that followed. He turned to Zaravor, who was staring at the trap, her mouth slightly agape. "Well?" Liam said with a grin. "Not bad for a trash can, huh?" Zaravor's expression shifted from stunned silence to cold, controlled anger. She said nothing at first, but her eyes were daggers as she stared at Liam's simple, effective trap. She had underestimated him. And the look on her face said everything. For a moment, the room was silent. Then, one by one, the other cadets began to speak. A few were still laughing under their breath, but their mockery had died down. Tira was the first to nod in acknowledgement. "Guess you proved us all wrong," she said with a grin. Liam gave her a wink. "I guess we'll see." Zaravor turned away sharply, her mind already calculating her next move. But for Liam, this victory was more than just the success of a simple trap. It was a moment of proof, a declaration that humans were not to be underestimated. Today, humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The test was only beginning, but already, Liam knew one thing for sure: this wasn't the last time he'd surprise them. The next day, the academy hall was alive with activity. Cadets lined the perimeter, whispering to one another as the simulation grid lit up, displaying the day's exercise, trap effectiveness evaluation. A large hologram projected in the center of the room showed a simulated invader, an artificial target meant to mimic the movements of a hostile entity. The test was simple: each cadet's trap had to capture the invader within a set time limit. Failure meant public embarrassment and a mark against their name in the academy's records. Liam stood at the back of the room, his arms crossed, watching his fellow cadets. His trap had been effective yesterday, but that was just the start. The real test came now, when the pressure was on. Across the room, Zaravor stood in front of a control panel, watching the cadets like a hawk. The Andromedan officer had not yet spoken to Liam, but the disdain in her eyes was palpable. She had clearly underestimated him before, and now, there was no escaping the sharp edge of her scrutiny. Liam wasn't bothered by it. He had done his job. Today, though, he would prove it wasn't just luck. The simulation began with a loud chime, and the invader was released into the grid. It was a humanoid figure, tall, imposing, and armored. Liam's heart raced, but he kept his cool, focusing on the task at hand. First up was Tira. She stepped forward confidently, her trap, a sophisticated energy barrier designed to incapacitate the target with a single touch, flickered to life. The invader approached, but just as it reached the barrier, a sudden surge of power caused the trap to short-circuit. The lights flickered, and the invader waltzed through it effortlessly, completing the task without breaking a sweat. "Not your best work, Tira," Zaravor remarked coldly, her eyes narrowed. "You'll need to revise your design." Tira's face flushed with embarrassment, but she nodded, acknowledging her failure. She returned to her station as the others watched in silence, all too aware of the stakes. The next few cadets fared no better. Complex traps malfunctioned. The invader either sidestepped, broke through, or simply disabled their systems. The tension in the room grew thicker with each failed attempt. As the invaders' movements became more erratic, Liam knew the time was coming for him to step up. He didn't need to overthink it, his design was simple, and he knew it worked. His turn arrived. Liam took a deep breath and walked to his station. The eyes of every cadet in the room, including Zaravor's, followed him as he approached the grid. Liam activated his trap. He had made a few adjustments overnight, refining the components to ensure its stability. The trash can was in place, now sitting squarely in the center of the pit he had dug the day before. The wires stretched taut, the pulleys ready. The invader emerged from the far side of the grid, its movements stiff but purposeful. It stalked toward Liam's trap, the pressure plate hidden beneath the dirt barely visible. Liam's fingers hovered over the control switch, waiting for the precise moment to trigger the alarm. The invader stepped closer. Every movement felt deliberate. The room fell into a hushed silence as the cadets held their breath. Liam's heart thudded in his chest, but his face remained calm. The trap would work. He had made sure of it. The invader took its first step onto the pressure plate, and the entire room reacted at once. The trash can lid flew open, and in an instant, the net sprang upward, wrapping around the invader and pinning it to the ground. The hidden pressure plates clicked into place, securing the target. A loud siren blared through the simulation grid, signaling the successful capture. Liam exhaled, his hands falling to his sides, but the tension in the room didn't dissipate. There was silence before the murmurs began, those whispered voices filled with doubt, surprise, and perhaps a touch of respect. The trap had worked. Zaravor's gaze remained fixed on the scene, but her face was unreadable. She didn't speak immediately. The invader remained trapped, immobilized in the center of the grid. Liam stood still, awaiting her verdict. His eyes flicked to his fellow cadets, some still looking at him in disbelief, others trying to hide their admiration behind the shields of their pride. The room was a cacophony of barely contained thoughts and opinions. After what felt like an eternity, Zaravor spoke. "You have captured the target." "Well done, Cadet." Liam nodded, his lips curling into a small grin. "Thanks, ma'am. It's all in the details." The Andromedan officer's eyes flashed with something between irritation and begrudging respect, but she quickly masked it with a cold expression. "Don't get too comfortable, Carter. This was only a test of efficiency. The real challenge comes next." Liam's smile faded slightly. The challenge wasn't over yet. He knew it wasn't enough to simply succeed once. He had to keep proving himself, every step of the way. As the simulation ended, Zaravor motioned for the cadets to return to their stations. The invader's holographic form flickered out, and the grid returned to its default state. "Next phase will begin shortly," she announced. "Prepare yourselves. You may have shown competence, but that is not enough to earn your place here." The words were harsh, designed to keep everyone on edge. No one was safe, not even after a victory. Everyone knew that. Liam glanced over at Tira, who was still adjusting her energy barrier, now attempting to troubleshoot her system. Her frustration was clear, but there was a new light in her eyes, a determination that hadn't been there before. "I think you've got this," he said, approaching her. Tira looked up, meeting his gaze for the first time since the simulation. "I'll get it right next time," she said, her voice steady. "You've got some guts, Carter." "I didn't expect that." Liam shrugged, his expression easy. "Guess it's all about using what you've got." Tira smiled, nodding in agreement. As the cadets prepared for the next phase, the competitive atmosphere shifted slightly. While Zaravor's criticism still hung in the air like a shadow, there was a sense of quiet recognition among the cadets. Liam was no longer just the human in the corner. He was the one who had done the impossible, the one who had outsmarted the others with nothing but a trash can and a bit of creativity. In a galaxy where humans were often underestimated, this was his chance to show the universe exactly what they were capable of. And he wasn't about to let anyone forget it. The air in Lunax's simulation hall was thick with tension. After the success of his trap, Liam thought the hard part was over. But as the cadets prepared for the next phase, he could feel the stakes rising. Today wasn't just another simulation. Today was the final test, a test not only of their skills but of their very worth as future officers in the Intergalactic Defense League. And for Liam, it was more than just a test of skill, it was the battle for human pride. Zarvor stood at the front, her expression unreadable as always. The cadets had gathered around, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and anticipation. No one spoke. They all knew what was coming next. "Cadets," Zarvor began, her voice sharp and cutting. "This next phase will challenge your ability to adapt. You will be faced with a scenario where you must not only capture your target but also learn how to outsmart it. The Invader is not a simple being to be trapped, it's a calculated, evolving force, one that learns from every mistake you make." Liam's pulse quickened, but he kept his expression neutral. This was what he had been waiting for. The simulation had been a simple test of efficiency, but now the challenge would test his creativity, his ability to think on his feet. "Once the simulation begins," Zarvor continued, "your traps will be tested, one by one. Only those who prove they can outsmart the Invader will advance to the final stage. Everyone else will fail." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle into the cadets' minds. "Are you ready?" The cadets nodded, though Liam could see the uncertainty in their eyes. The pressure was mounting. He'd shown them once that humanity was capable of more than they gave it credit for, but now he had to do it again. Zarvor gestured to the simulation grid. The room darkened, and a series of digital displays lit up, showing the incoming Invader, a holographic figure, now more menacing, cloaked in black and armed with advanced weaponry. It was a humanoid figure, but this time, it moved with purpose, scanning the surroundings, calculating escape routes. Liam stepped forward, his hands slightly trembling, but his resolve remained firm. This was his moment to prove to Zarvor, and to everyone in this room, that human ingenuity could rival anything the galaxy had to offer. The simulation began with a sudden beep. The Invader was released into the grid, and the cadets immediately sprang into action. As expected, the alien cadets rushed to activate their traps, those familiar, sleek mechanisms designed to trap or incapacitate. Some relied on electromagnetic fields, others on high-voltage grids. But Liam knew better than to rely on sheer power. It wasn't the technology that made the difference, it was how you used it. Liam's trap was simple, but effective. The trash can was still in the center of his area, its lid slightly ajar, the pulley system in place. This time, however, he had added a few modifications. Hidden beneath the trash can was a false compartment with a secondary trigger, one that would activate only when the Invader attempted to bypass the primary trap. Liam could see the Invader moving, its sensors scanning the grid, analyzing the terrain. It was clever, faster than the simple simulations from before, and Liam knew he had only one chance to get this right. If he failed, the consequences could be catastrophic. Failure meant not just his personal embarrassment, but the risk of proving his species unworthy of the IDL's respect. He took a steadying breath, watching the Invader edge closer to his trap. The grid was alive with movement, the other cadets frantically attempting to engage their targets, but the Invader dodged them all, moving swiftly and purposefully. Then it was his turn. Liam didn't hesitate. He pressed the button, triggering the first phase of his trap. The trash can's lid popped open, and the net shot out, but this time, the Invader was ready. It dodged the net with a swift sidestep, its speed surprising even Liam. His eyes widened, but he didn't panic. He had anticipated this. The Invader's sensors whirred as it moved toward the secondary trigger. The trap wasn't designed to catch it outright, it was a ruse to lure the Invader into a false sense of security. The Invader's first reaction had been to avoid the net, but now it was heading straight for the real trap, an old technique, one that Liam had perfected back home in the streets when he was younger. As the Invader neared the secondary trigger, Liam's hand hovered over the control. Timing was everything. One wrong move, and the Invader would be free again. The Invader's foot hovered just above the pressure plate. Liam pressed the button. The ground beneath the Invader's feet gave way. The pit trap opened beneath it, sending the invader tumbling into a small, hidden compartment. The trap clicked shut around it, securing the target with a mechanical hiss. Liam exhaled sharply, his body finally relaxing as the siren sounded. The simulation was complete. He had done it. He had outsmarted an invader that was designed to learn and adapt, using nothing more than simple mechanics and human ingenuity. The room erupted into noise, shouts, murmurs, and glances exchanged between the cadets. Liam stood still, his hands by his sides, trying to control the rush of adrenaline that coursed through his veins. He had won. But he wasn't done yet. Zaravor's eyes were fixed on the simulation grid, her expression unreadable. After a long pause, she turned to face the cadets. "Impressive," she said, her tone colder than usual. "But don't get comfortable, Carter. This was just a test of strategy and timing. It's not over yet." Liam didn't respond. He wasn't looking for approval. He didn't need Zaravor's approval. He was here to prove humanity's strength to the galaxy, not to one alien officer. Tira approached him, her face full of admiration. "That was brilliant," she said, her voice almost breathless. "I thought for sure it would get past you." Liam smiled, but his eyes remained focused on the Andromedan officer. "It's all about timing and thinking ahead," he said. "Sometimes, the simplest tricks work better than all the tech in the universe." Tira nodded, clearly impressed. "Well, you've definitely shown them something today." The other cadets were slowly beginning to recover from the shock of Liam's success. The tension in the room had lifted slightly, though it was clear that Zaravor's judgment still hung heavy. As the final cadet took their turn, the simulation room buzzed with a quiet anticipation, but Liam knew that the challenge wasn't over. This was just one victory. The real test would come when they were asked to prove their worth in ways far beyond traps and simulations. Zaravor's gaze lingered on Liam for a moment longer, and for the first time, he saw something resembling respect in her eyes. But it was fleeting. She had a job to do, and so did he. The battle was far from over, but Liam had made a statement: humanity wasn't to be underestimated. And he was just getting started.